a destruction and a devastation in the Shenandoah Valley, one that you could not have imagined. Jubal Early, my commanding officer, witnessed with his own eyes the burning of homes, businesses, schools, even the notable Virginia Military Institute. All of this was done without provocation and without notice. Retribution must be served, and it will be served on this selected city, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. We will have retaliation, but we will give you an opportunity that the Yankees did not give our brethren in the Shenandoah Valley. You will raise a ransom, or this city will be burned. Captain Fitzhugh, read the proclamation.
By order of General Jubal Early of the Army of Northern Virginia, Chambersburg is ordered to pay $100,000 in gold or $500,000 in Yankee greenbacks.
$100,000?
If this demand is not met, Chambersburg will be burned.
That much money, sir?
Chambersburg must pay $100,000 in gold or $500,000 in greenbacks. If you fail to meet this demand, we will burn Chambersburg.
Just go home and get some money.
I suggest you do.
How can we pay this?
This, sir, is the tribute you must pay to save your city. We have met with your city fathers this morning. Some of them were sympathetic to the demand. Others refused. You shall pay, or this city will be burned, sir.
We've had Confederates here before.
Who are you, sir?
But I'm Jacob Hoke. I own the store right around the corner.
The order is clear. Chambersburg pays the tribute. The town will burn.
We do not have that kind of money, sir.
Don't move along.
Well, sir, I'll give you some time to think about it. Troopers, let's start settling up here. Put some debris on these courthouse steps. This looks like the structure we need to start with. Let's get our dirty business started. You have a few more moments to raise the ransom. I suggest you go about the business of raising some money, sir. Time is wasted.
We do not have that kind of money in this town, sir.
Find a way to come up with it, sir. The town will burn.
And so, just like that, the people of Chambersburg, one clear July morning, their lives were interrupted once again by the American Civil War. A ransom was exacted on their town, a town that was not unlike any other here on the border between North and South. But on that day was a very unlucky place to be. The folks here, maybe because they had seen so many soldiers pass through their town before, didn't give much heed to the warning. Several times earlier in the war, cavalry troopers had ridden into town. General Jeb Stuart himself had been here in Chambersburg. And so the town fathers, myself included, we didn't give much heed when General McCausland came into town on July the 30th. When the burning began, it began right here in the center of town.
Very good. Continue. Mr. Hoke, I suspect you do not take our threat seriously. This brave band of 900 cavalrymen have infiltrated Pennsylvania after already making this demand upon Frederick, Maryland, and Hagerstown. The fine citizens of those two Maryland communities had the good sense to pay but I get the distinct impression that this ransom will not be paid. On the orders of Jubal Anderson Early, my commanding officer, I hereby order that the town of Chambersburg shall be burned. Fire the town!
And so squads of men roamed through these very streets, walked up these very stairs, and set fire to the heart of our city. There were many who tried to stop them. There were many pleas for assistance and for help, but that help and assistance was not given, save for one man in the Confederate Army who felt that this was an outrage.
Colonel Gilmore! Colonel Gilmore! Come to me at once. Over here, sir. I have some instructions for you. I want you to start with the courthouse, then move on to the town hall, and then down Main Street. Light this town ablaze.
Sir, this is being given by your order.
Okay, good.
Many women and children in this town.
I know there are, Colonel, but as you know, we serve under the command of Jubal Anderson Early, and it is by his order that we shall do this. He is my commanding officer. He is yours. You shall follow these orders. Burn this town.
Sir, I have faithfully followed the laws of the Confederacy. But sir, this is not honorable. This is wrong.
I understand, Colonel, and I thank you for your service. But you, sir, are being insubordinate.
Sir.
You are dismissed. Rejoin your regiment at once.
Yes, sir.
We shall deal with this later.
And so the burning began. Up and down the streets, different squads of men were sent to different homes. They broke into houses. They beat down the front doors. Oftentimes, no of them was at home except women and children. The men here in town, many of them off to war. They broke up belongings right in the front halls of these houses. They took the cushions off of settees and sofas. They piled them at the bottom of stairways and lit them afire, with small children looking on as their mothers cried. Look, the courthouse is afire. The whole center of town will soon be ablaze. The flames, before it's over, will lift so high above our heads that it will create its own weather system. All the flames meeting right above the diamond and swirling in a vortex in smoke and flame. It was virtually hell on earth here in Chambersburg. Women and children running every which way. Buckets being dipped in a stream just west of town. But to no avail, there was nothing here that could be saved. Pretty soon, there was nothing in the center of town but fleeing and crying and devastation.
Major Gilmore, I'd like you to ride up to the McClure house. Alexander McClure has been an ally of Abraham Lincoln, and he has criticized the Confederacy once too often in his newspaper. Burn the McClure house to the ground. Captain Fitzhugh, make sure your men are checking with the Masonic Temple. I understand there is a guard there protecting it.
Yes, sir.
Direct someone to verify that.
To those of you who may not be familiar with our town, let me paint for you a picture of what it was like to have been here that July afternoon in 1864. Why, in every direction here from the diamond, south, west, north, east, every block was filled with flames. Why, an 86-year-old woman right around the corner from here, across the street from my store, was so overcome by what was going on that she fainted. The Confederates stepped over her body and burned her house anyway. Why, the wife of our jeweler here in town had just passed away. She had died with the fever, and her young infant daughter had the fever too. Her body was laid out in the front room of her house, being prepared for burial on the day that the Confederates came to town. And when the Confederates came here, they beat and pounded on her door. And the grief-stricken husband came to the door and said that there was death in this house. And yet, they heeded not, broke right inside the doors, and burned the house anyway. Several of us got together and ran across the street to help that poor husband grab up the dead, lifeless body of his poor departed wife, and we quickly buried it in the garden behind the house so that it wouldn't be devoured by the flames. Why, by the time I made it back through the house, the heat and the smoke was so strong that I had to hold a cloth over my face to keep from suffocating.
Good work, good work. Let's continue on this way. Let's let it burn.
Soon, anywhere that you went here in town, the flames grew higher and higher. And those of us who had stayed behind to try and help save some belongings, some of the things that we owned, were almost caught here, cut off from the rest of the town. And we huddled right here where you're standing, right in the center of town in a small group. It was a pitiful sight. There were small children with mothers holding their skirts over those children's faces so that they wouldn't be singed from the heat. At one point, we took mattresses, and those mattresses filled with straw and corn husks, we built almost in a shield around some of those small children, right here in the diamond, as the smoke and flame grew worse and worse. Before long, there was nothing left here in the downtown, here on the diamond. Soon, it was only the outskirts of town that were left. If you made it to the stream, you were safe. We waited and waited, thinking that our militia would come at any minute. There was New York militia nearby, and there was a general with a cavalry squadron in Greencastle, not too far away. But no help came. Citizens who were crouched in hiding inside their homes were soon driven out by the smoke and flame. And before too long, all that was left were the outskirts of town.
Captain Fitzhugh, make sure that all your men are mounted and accounted for. Major Gilmore, assemble your regiment. Let's leave this place. Let's let Chambersburg burn to the ground.
I remember seeing those cavalry troopers ride off. Never before has my Christian heart been filled with so much hatred. Never before was my heart filled with so much dread. In 4 or 5 hours, this vibrant city that had been the pride of South Central Pennsylvania, one of the best cities in the entire Commonwealth, was reduced to nothing more than ashes. Nothing was left here in the city of Chambersburg. It's important for you to remember here tonight that this did not happen in a far-off place. That this horrible burning, the burning of this city, happened where you're standing. The death and destruction of the Civil War reached Franklin County, Pennsylvania, reached the streets of Chambersburg. and it was destroyed. But the flames would end, and the fires would stop. And soon an eerie quiet fell over all of the town. The soldiers were gone. Many of the people of Chambersburg were gone. And you could have heard a pin drop. You could hear glass breaking and falling on far-off parts of our city. There was nothing here left for any of us. But the people came back. And we began to rebuild. And Chambersburg rose from the ashes to become one of the most vibrant and bustling cities in the late part of the 19th century. We rebuilt this courthouse, and the one that you see standing here before you today is the very courthouse that we rebuilt that year. We rebuilt my store. We rebuilt this diamond. We rebuilt our lives. Chambersburg came back to life, and it came back stronger than it ever was before. Here's the important thing to remember. Listen to me now. Listen when I tell you this. Chambersburg is an example of what happened to our entire nation. We were a peaceful place, a vibrant place, until our lives were touched by war. It was a war that just before it happened, none of us could imagine. It was a war that none of us believed would ever come here. And even when the fighting began, we believed it would stay in a far-off place. But what we learned here was that war always touches every community in our land. The American Civil War destroyed our nation. We tore ourselves apart as a people, and we did it in front of our children. Our children, the entire generation's children, were witness to the death and destruction that we brought upon one another. But just like here in Chambersburg, our nation rose from the ashes. Our nation rose from the ashes of the greatest conflict it had ever seen. We bound up our nation's wounds. We came together only to become the kind of nation that could never imagine that this ever took place. But don't you dare forget, don't you ever forget what happened here in Chambersburg and what happened to the people of the United States. Because when we forget the struggles and the trials and the tribulations of that generation, we will forget what makes us great as a people. God bless Chambersburg, and God bless the United States of America.